S.S.S. Toldos, Tafshin Ayin Ches. Usually, it's a little bit funny when you say, if somebody who's giving a share on the Parshias, if you say, like, you know, this Parsha is one of my favorite Parshias. But when it comes to Parshas Toldos every year, it's something that I just have to say. There's so much going on in this week's Parsha. We only have a short amount of time to delve into one of the parts of the Parsha each year. So we're going to make another attempt, just speaking in the couple of minutes that were allotted each week, to say a really beautiful Dvar Torah from the Nesivos Shalom. And another thing about this week's year is that the Nesivos Shalom really runs the gamut from being a very, very Hasidic Torah, sometimes to real pshat in the psukim. And this week, I have to say, is real Hasidic Torah. Something very heartwarming will keep you really thinking and keep you warm through a long Friday night that we have this week. And the pasuk tells us at the beginning of the parsha, "Vayehav Yitzchak S.S.S." that we know Yitzchak Avinu, he loved Esav right away. Of course, we have some tremendous questions on these couple of words. And really, we've actually spoken about this very interesting pasuk a number of times over the past few years that we've been giving this year on Thursday night. And it would seem from the pasuk that Yitzchak loved Esav so much that we see further on in the parsha, he was ready to promise Esav everything, to give Esav the brachas that were handed down from Avraham Avinu to Yitzchak. Yitzchak loved Esav so much that he was actually ready and willing to give the brachas to Esav. And for some reason, the brachas, which we know, ultimately they went to Yaakov, right? But for some reason, these brachas had to come through Esav. You ever wonder about that? Like, why couldn't it just be normal, right? Why couldn't it be that Avraham Avinu would give it to Yitzchak Avinu, and Yitzchak Avinu would give it to Yaakov Avinu? But for some reason, and it has to be that there's a good reason for this, that the brachas had to go through Esav. And the same question applies to something else that we see at the beginning of the parsha. We know, at the beginning of the parsha, we speak also about the Bechorah, right? It's the same letters. It's bracha and Bechorah. We see that by the Bechorah too, that Yaakov somehow got the firstborn. Yaakov somehow became the Bechor. But yet, if it was meant for Yaakov, why did it have to come through Esav? Let Yaakov just be born first. Let Yaakov just get the bracha straight. Everything, it seems, had to come through Esav. And there has to be a good reason for that. So too, if you look within the brachas that are given at the end of this week's parsha, we see something very interesting. That Yitzchak Avinu, it would seem that he was so consumed and obsessed with Gashmias. And we know Yitzchak Avinu was Kodesh Kadoshim. Yitzchak Avinu had no interest in Gashmias. But look at the brachas. Yitel Lecho Halekim, Mital HaShamayim, Mishmani Haaretz, the best of the land, and the best of the crops, and all the money in the world, everything. Yitzchak's giving the brachas of Gashmias. I mean, doesn't every bit of Gashmias, we've learned and we've said in our shiurim over the years too, that every bit of Gashmias that a person has, even if it comes legally, and even if it's, so to speak, good Gashmias, any Gashmias that you have separates you and distances you from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not Gashmias. You have Gashmias, it's okay. I'm not judging anybody, telling anybody, but it's just a fact. The more Gashmias you have, the more distant you are from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Yitzchak Avinu would go and give these brachas to Yaakov Avinu, that you should be full of Gashmias, you should have all the good and Kol Tov Mitzrayim, everything that you have in this world, you to Yaakov Avinu, the Bechira Avos, the one who's going to carry on the continuity of Klal Yisrael, we're giving him brachas of Gashmias. So we mentioned in the Shir last week on Parshas Chai Yisara that the real way to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, as we said, V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha, and Rashi tells us, the Mefarshim learn, B'shnei Yitzrecha, that a person has to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with your Yetzer HaTov and your Yetzer Hara. In other words, and we went into this more in detail last week, that there is a very important way to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with your Yetzer Hara. And how do you do that? You take, Yetzer Hara gives every one of us a drive to do things. And it gives us a burning inside desire to do things. So the Shnei Yitzrecha, you serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with the Yetzer Hara by taking those koiches and saying, Yetzer Hara, thank you very much for those koiches, but I'm going to use it for Avodas Hashem. I'm going to use it to run, to do mitzvahs, to use that energy and burn it off on Ruchnias. And all that energy that the Yetzer Hara is giving you to do Averis, you take it, you turn it around, and we use it for Avodas Hashem. And that is B'chol Avavcha, and we spoke more about that last week. And that really is our purpose on this world, because if we just serve the Kodesh Baruch Hu with the Yetzer HaTov, very, very good, you know? You serve Kodesh Baruch Hu with the Yetzer, I gave you Yetzer HaTov, you're always inclined to do good, you do good, so it's very nice, but it's not very challenging. You wouldn't get such schar for that. The real schar comes when you take our deficiencies and we turn those into Avodas Hashem. We raise our level of Gashmias to where our Gashmias is all serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We take Tumah that would be inside us and we turn it into Hislavas B'Kedusha, as Nesivos Shalom calls it. We turn it into a desire, a burning desire to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Pasuk tells us in Tehillim, right? Sur Meirah V'asei Toiv. That there's two different things. Asei Toiv is really serving the Kadosh Baruch Hu with Torah, Avodah, all the mitzvahs. It's all there. That's Asei Toiv. But there's also, you can't forget, there's the other part of the pasuk, and that's Sur Meirah, where we take the desires. Nesivos Shalom says, Sur Meirah, take the bad and turn it around. Use that for energy for Avodas Hashem. And the pasuk we know, the Nesivos Shalom observes, the pasuk says Sur Meirah first, which means that it's a bigger challenge. It's a bigger part of Avodas Hashem. And that says the Nesivos Shalom. The fact that Sur Meirah comes first, now comes the Hasidic Torah, the Sur Meirah comes first, that is called the B'chaira. That is called the B'chaira. That is the B'char. Our tafkid, that is our first tafkid in serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We start our Avodas Hashem by Sur Meirah, by taking the bad and turning it into good. See, he says like this, Nesivos Shalom. Yitzchak Avinu, what was he thinking? Come on, he's giving the brachas to Esau. Yitzchak Avinu thought that was the difference between Yaakov Avinu and Esau. That Yaakov Avinu serves Hashem one way. Yaakov Avinu serves Hashem with Asei Toiv. Yaakov Avinu was born with a Leiv Toiv, with a desire to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Asei Toiv is the way Yaakov Avinu serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And he looked at Esav, said Esav is also a Oived Hashem. But Esav is serving Hashem with Sur Meirah, the much bigger challenge. Esav was born with inclinations to be doing not so very good his whole life. And we know Esav had all, the Yetzer Hara was built into Esav. So Yitzchak Avinu said, listen, Yaakov Avinu, he's a Erlich Yid, he's sitting in the Beis Medrash all day, he's serving Hashem with Asei Toiv, and then look at Yitzchak. Who needs the brachas? Who needs the brachas? Esav Avinu has much bigger challenges. Esav Avinu, not Avinu, but Esav needs the brachas more than Yaakov. So he was ready to give the brachas to Esav, because Esav has to work b'shnei yitzrecha. Besides the Yetzer HaTov, which Esav had too, every person had that also, but Esav had a Yetzer Hara that he had to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with. So that he had to serve b'shnei yitzrecha. Esav had to channel his anger and his desire for Averos. He had to channel it into Avodas Hashem. And Yitzchak, we know, Yitzchak represented Avodah with Yira and Gevura. Avraham Avinu was Chesed, Ahava, was a totally different Avodas Hashem. So Yitzchak Avinu says in Nesivos Shalom, he understood Esav very well. You know, Yaakov Avinu maybe had a little bit more of the genes of Avraham Avinu, where he had love for every person, and love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and chesed, and desire to do. And Yitzchak identified a little bit more with Esav. Esav with Midas HaYira, Midas HaGvura. It's not so easy to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu that way. So, therefore, it seemed that Esav, he liked that Esav was much more liked by Yitzchak. Yitzchak liked Esav more. He was able to identify with him more. So therefore, the Bechira belonged to Esav first, because Esav was the Sur Meirah. So yes, why wasn't Yaakov Avinu the Bechar? You know why? Because Esav needed it more. Sur Meirah is like the Bechira. Sur Meirah is the first thing that every person has to do. Sur Meirah in the pasuk goes before Asay Toiv. And it's for that reason that Yitzchak Avinu felt that Esav needed the brachas. Yaakov, like we said, Ish Tam, Yoshev Ha'olam, you'll manage. You'll be okay. You live on a koil check. You'll be fine. You don't have any desire to go out on the street. You don't have any desire to do bad. Esav was the Ish Sadeh. Esav was out in the fields. Esav was one who was challenged with all the challenges of Olam Hazeh. He was going to be on the battlefield with the Yetzer Hara. Esav, you are the Bechar. Esav, you need the brachas. He's taking his bad and trying to turn it into good. So the brachas also had to be brachas of Gashmias. Why did the brachas have to be brachas of Gashmias? And listen to this pshat, and Nesivos Shalom says. The pasuk tells us, "V'yiten l'cho halakim." You know how you could translate that? That within the Gashmias, we all have Gashmias, and we all have Gashmias desires. V'yiten l'cho halakim, that you should have Elikim in all of your Gashmias. That you take your Gashmias that we have, and that we're born with, and that we're inclined to have, and we're inclined to do, all those things that we're running after, V'yiten l'cho halakim, that you should have Nital HaShamayim, that you should have Elikim, and you should have Tal HaShamayim in all your Gashmias. The entire focus of our working for anything in this world, and working on our Gashmias, should be with the focus of using it for Avodas Hashem. And that is really the bracha that Yitzchak Avinu was giving. Yitzchak Avinu was giving the bracha that you should be able to take the bad and turn it into good. But as it became more apparent to Yitzchak Avinu that, you know what, this Esav is not all that I thought he was cracked up to be. This is what I thought of Esav. But as it became more apparent that Esav was not following the path of Sur Meirah, Esav was indulged in Gashmias for the sake of being indulged in Gashmias, then Yitzchak Avinu changed the plans. Now the plan is, yes, they were supposed to go to Esav, but it had to come through Esav because Esav was really needed the brachas. But now the brachas have to go to Yaakov Avinu. And this is really the lesson that we need to take out of this entire episode in the Parsha. That yes, there's Gashmias in the world. And yes, all of us are born with the Yetzer Hara. And we are born with the desire to have Gashmiastic things. But just know that it's possible that we don't have to act in the way of Esav. We can take the Gashmias and use the brachas that Yaakov Avinu now gave to Yaakov, that Yitzchak gave to Yaakov, V'yiten l'cho halakim, that within the Gashmias it is possible and desirable, and that's what Hashem wants, that we should turn that all into Ruchnias. And it all had to come through Esav. And that, unfortunately, sometimes we don't understand why these things have to happen. But now, Nesivos Shalom explains to us a little bit that it makes a lot more sense that it came through Esav, because these brachas are meant, they're actually meant for our Avodas Hashem, where we can take all of our Gashmias and turn it around and use it for Avodas Hashem.